Hi, my name's Dan Goldberg with M&R's Technical Service Department. We're here today to show you how to use the Revolver program, which is in the Sportsman EX 10-color machine. Over the years, different models of M&R equipment have had the Revolver program in them. Some of the features and functions and the way that the Revolver is programmed have changed. If you need that information for older versions, we can accommodate you, but we're going to concentrate on the newest version of Revolver right now. I have set up a design on the Sportsman in the way that I would normally run the design in production. I typically will make myself a little cheat sheet or a spec sheet, just real rough, and I'll lay out the design how I want to print it. So in this case, head 1, I've got my white ink. I've got a flash unit, a red chili D flash unit in my head 2. Third head, I have a cool station, no screen, no flash, just open. Next, light brown, orange, dark brown, so 3 colors wet on wet. 3 more open heads, and then a highlight white. So this is how I plan out the job that I want to run. Now, I already ran a test print of this design. And here it is. So what we have is a skull print with my white underbase and then the additional colors printed wet on wet. But I'm not happy with the brightness of this design. If I had additional flash cure units that I could put into the open heads on the machine, then I would be able to gel those inks in between and maybe achieve a brighter finished product. However, if you're limited to one flash cure unit, one of the beauties about Revolver program is that you can set up that Revolver program in such a way that I could print my white underbase with a double stroke. I could run it around under the flash on all 12 of my palettes, maybe hit it again with a single stroke of white, flash that one, do a few colors wet on wet, flash those, and then finish it up with my highlight white. And that's just using one flash cure unit. So that's one of the benefits of Revolver. If you don't have multiple flash units, you can still end up with a good looking bright image on a dark garment by using a single flash and programming Revolver properly. Another reason why you may use Revolver program is if a client supplies you with a piece of artwork, maybe even the finished film positives, and you burn the screens, if that design was not color separated properly but registered, and you have those colors being trapped by a black outline, a lot of times when you're running that job, it will end up as a smeared looking image because you have wet ink under wet ink. Let's say a yellow being trapped by black. That can turn really muddy and nasty looking. However, with Revolver, what you could do is print your colors, use a flash cure unit to gel that ink, and then come back and lay down the black trap outline on top, and they won't smear. So, a couple of different reasons to use Revolver mode. And you as the end user can play with this and develop your own applications. I've seen people stack inks for a higher density image. I've seen people do 4-color process on dark garments using Revolver mode. So the possibilities are really endless. All right, let's get started. So now we are going to program the skull design in Revolver mode so that I can get a better looking image, something that's gonna really pop off the shirt. At this point, I have my initial screen setup. This is the way I already set up the machine as if I was going to run it in production using one flash and the colors wet on wet. So I'm in my main screen right now. I'll enter into print run, and you can see that that's where the heads are all programmed the way that I initially did that first strike off. I press main and then I press Revolver mode. So you can see currently those heads are not programmed because they're not green. Everything is red. So now I will start to enter my various revolutions of how I want to run this design in Revolver Mode. So I have a plus minus key here in the center yellow image, and that dictates each revolution. Currently I'm in revolution number 1, so I have to program it the way I want it to run to print those shirts on the first revolution. I'm going to activate head 1 and then program it to be on. Now, I'm also going to choose to do 2 print strokes of white, doubling the amount of ink I'm laying down on that shirt. Okay. Activate head 2, ensure that my head 2 is programmed to be a quartz flash. And at this point, that's my revolution number 1. That's all I want. So I'm going to use the plus key here in the center yellow dot, and I'm going to switch to revolution number 2. You can see that head 1 is now deactivated. On my revolution number 2, I want to print that same head 1, because what happened on the first revolution is a double stroke of white. It went underneath the flash and it gelled that white ink. Now I want to lay down a 3rd coat. I program head number 1 to be on with a single stroke. That's my revolution number 2. Plus sign in the yellow center dot brings me to revolution number 3. All heads are off, only flash is programmed. At this point, I'm going to print heads 4, 5, and 6, wet on wet. Activate 4, program it. It currently has a single pass on it. Program head number 5. I see that's an orange, kind of a light color. So what I'm going to do is on head number 5, I'm going to program it to be on, and I'm going to stroke that twice, double the amount of orange ink being laid down. I'll turn on head number 6. That's going to be a dark brown. I can get away with a single stroke on that one. That's my revolution number 3. I'm going to press the plus key to advance to my 4th revolution. And on my 4th revolution, I'm going to print my highlight white. And I'm going to turn that on, make sure it's activated, and I'm going to hit that highlight white with 2 strokes. At this point, we're ready to run. So, here at the bottom of the yellow circle in Revolver Mode, I have my run button. When I press that, it activates the Revolver Mode. And I can tell that because here in the upper yellow box on the right, it shows me my revolver symbol, and it's turned on green for go. All right. From this screen, we can also adjust our timers. We have our index timer, our IR flash, infrared. So if you have an infrared flash, you would adjust your time there for dwell. Quartz flash, and that's for our red chili D quartz flash. So I'm going to program in 7 seconds. My palettes are kind of cool. When you're running in production, you can have much lower flash times for your flashes. But I'm going to program in 7, so I make sure I'm gelling this ink properly as we're doing our revolver print. Have index timer. Because I have such a long delay on my quartz timer, 7 seconds, I can leave that index time at 0. However, when you go to load, unload finished garments and then reload fresh garments, you're going to want to add additional index time. All right, t-shirts loaded. At this point, timers are set and my revolutions are programmed. I'm going to switch my toggle switch to automatic mode, and then I'm going to click upward to print start. What's going to happen is we'll hear 3 beeps from the machine advising us that the pallets are about to rotate, and it's going to begin its revolver sequence. And it's going to carry that through exactly the same way that I programmed it. Once the pallet advances, I click to print finish, and that tells the machine that I just want to do 1 shirt. That was my 2 strokes of white for my underbase, and now it's being flashed. 7 seconds, that should gel that white ink sufficiently for the wet on wet colors to sit on it. Now at this point, I can be in charge of the machine. I'm already done flashing my white ink on that one sample. So what I could do is to reach over and bring my quartz flash time down to 0, and that'll speed the machine up. There's no reason to wait 7 seconds for every single index when my one shirt with the white ink has already been gelled. As my shirt comes around, I make sure that I go to quartz timer and increase it back to 7 seconds. Now, you'll see the revolution switch from 1 to 2, and I get my single stroke of white ink. So I'm on revolution number 2. Now the ink, my 3rd layer of white ink, will go underneath my quartz flash. And I can reach over, set it back to 0, and bring it around again. Okay, here's my sample shirt, my test print. It's got 3 coats of white ink on it, 2 from the first revolution, which got flashed, 1 from the second revolution, which also got flashed, and now it's on its way over to my 3 colors. And you can see, head number 4 activates, head number 5 activates, and prints, double. So I'm laying down two coats of orange ink. Now head number 6 floods and prints. That's the brown color. Now that shirt's gonna come around to me again. So here we see the white underbase, that's 3 coats of white, plus our 3 colors, light brown, orange, and dark brown. It's on its way into its 4th revolution. And you can see that it switched to revolution number 4 here on the screen. Head number 10 is active for 2 strokes, designated by the number 2 in it. So as soon as that palette comes around to the head 10, we're gonna get 2 strokes. Now, you just heard a couple of beeps out of the machine. What that is telling us is that we have to return to this press if we were doing something else, like stacking shirts at the end of the dryer or spot cleaning garments that got ink on them. So we return to the press. So at this point, what happens is the shirt returns. It's gone through its 4 revolutions. However, in Revolver Mode, the machine will always do 1 more revolution than you programmed it for. And the reason why is when you're in production mode in Revolver and you allow the machine to finish its cycle, it has to go around 1 extra revolution to allow you to take the finished shirts off the pallets. Of course, you can choose to just let the machine run around for its extra revolution, and then it'll just stop. So, our finished garment is coming around. Even though we programmed 4 revolutions for printing, it's on its 5th, and it's on its way home. So, at this point, we can see that the garment is complete, and that it is much brighter than our initial image. So as we can see, this is our first image. This was 2 strokes of white ink and then flashed with the colors wet on top. This is our revolvered image. So we can clearly see a difference in the way that image looks. Here I'm flashed and wet on wet. Here, head number 1 had 2 passes of white ink and a flash. Revolution number 2 had a single stroke of white and a flash. And then we laid down 3 colors. Remember, we double stroked on the orange, and that's why it's popping. On the 4th revolution, we laid down that highlight white. So that is a revolvered image. A couple of other valuable features about the M&R Revolver program is that you can store up to 3 Revolver programs in memory. So here on my original program for the skull print, I've got each of my heads in the different revolutions, all programmed. And if I want to save that skull design for later use, I go up here to the recipe button. Touch it and it pulls up recipes. If I touch into the box, it'll pull up a keypad and I can name this design skull. And enter it. So here I have skull reserved for the future. If I now go in and plot out a 4-color process on black, like the Mona Lisa I mentioned, I would do all of my programming, run my test print, possibly run production, and then come over to recipe 2 and type in Mona for Mona Lisa. I could pull that design up at a later date as well. So you can store up to 3 Revolver programs. These might be repeat orders. If you're doing Jane's tow yard and she needs shirts for her crew every 6 months and you're printing those shirts over and over, you can save her design in there and simply pull it up, put the screens in order the way that you have them set to your spec sheet, load up your squeegee's flood bars, and print Jane's order again. Now, there are some considerations that you need to keep in mind when using the Revolver program. Some of those being that on this particular press, a 10-color Sportsman EX with 12 pallets, when you run the job in full production mode with 4 revolutions, keep in mind that the carousel is going around and around, turning on and printing heads to achieve the final result, but you're only getting 12 finished garments in a certain number of minutes. Let's say it takes you 6 minutes to run that job around in Revolver mode. It is a drastic difference than running production. Let's say a flashed underbase and then wet on wet colors. In that case, you might be running at 40 dozen an hour. Now using the Revolver mode, it might be bringing you down into half of that level of production. So please keep that in mind when costing jobs that are going to be run in Revolver mode. Another consideration about Revolver mode is that you have 10 available heads on this machine. If you only have 1 flash cure unit, but a customer gave you a 10-color job to produce, you can use Revolver to do it. You just don't put your quartz flash into a print head. You position it over your unload station. By pressing the unload button, you can turn it into a quartz flash and have that flash here while the operator is loading and unloading shirts at the load station. Now that I've taken you through the steps of programming the Revolver mode for the skull design, I'll explain to you how to go into full production with this same job. I'm currently in the recipes screen on Mona Lisa. I'll select recipe number 1, which is the skull design, go back to my print run screen, which is selected for Revolver, and then I'm going to press run. You'll see that I'm in revolution number 1. My head number 1 is programmed for 2 strokes. At this point, I'll need to add some time on my quartz flash. My pallets have cooled a bit since we've been talking and not running production, so I'm going to start out with a 7-second delay on my quartz time. Keep in mind that as you're running in production and your pallets warm up, you can start to take away seconds on that quartz timer. I program in 7 seconds and I load my shirt, always on the load pallet next to the head that you have designated as head number 1. At this point, I'm going to toggle my manual auto switch up to automatic mode, and then I'm going to click my print start toggle switch upward. I'll get 3 beeps The machine will advance the pallets to the load position, and I'm just going to continue loading until all 12 of these pallets are loaded with t-shirts. As I'm doing that loading, the press will be printing in its revolver mode. You can see that it's doing its double strokes, and the first shirt is now under the red chili quartz flash. Revolution number 1 is in full effect right now. All I'm doing is loading garments. All right, here's my last empty pallet. I load the shirt on. This load pallet will advance to the head number 1 to receive its 2 strokes of white ink. Then, as the first garment that I loaded onto the carousel travels underneath the print head number 1, Revolver will change to Revolution number 2, and I'll get that single stroke of white ink that I wanted. I'm in Revolver production at this point, so I can walk away from the machine, grab a drink of water, stack some shirts at the end of the dryer, and all I do is wait for the machine to beep a notification at me. That lets me know that the last revolution is about to be complete. At that time, I have 2 choices to make. Either return to the press, and as the machine is beeping in its final revolution, press the print start toggle switch upward, and then unload finished garments and load new ones, and the whole process starts again. Or I choose to ignore the beeping, let it finish its last revolution, and then return at a later time. And what I'll encounter is 12 pallets of fully finished garments. At that time, I can press in my e-stop button and unload the garments one by one onto the belt. I can put my carousel back into position, load a fresh t-shirt, and commence with the Revolver print job again. I'm Dan Goldberg with M&R Technical Services. I hope that this has been informational for you, and good luck revolvering.